Hey guys, welcome back to another session of Evony with Genghis on server 68. So today we're going to talk about sub-generals and the gear you should be putting on them. Another time I'll talk about which sub-generals you actually should be putting on, but the gear you put on them is very important. So basically, you're going to put all your Achaemenid gear on your sub-generals. And if you look right here, these are the scroll chests you're going to get. And you have a shot at getting each one of those every time you open it. I will not open mine today because I'm having very, very bad luck getting rings. I still need a couple more. Other than that, all my sub-generals are completely geared up. And rings are difficult, so I just try and save up around, I don't know, whenever I get bored, 20-ish, and then I open and I hope to get 2 or 3 rings. I've opened 10 at a time a few times. I got no rings. I opened 17, I got 0 rings. I opened 21, I got 2 rings. Then I got upset because I just opened 17, so I opened one more and I got a ring. So it's completely random, but rings and helmets are the 2 difficult ones to get. And then when you get them, you get all the scrolls down here. And as you can see, they're all piled up, and you will get tons and tons of swords and axes and things you don't, spears, things you won't use on more than a couple people. But so let's get into what gear you should actually put on the sub generals. And before we do that, let's look at a defense report. See what I can find here in saved. So I don't know what I'm opening up here, but let's just see what we got here. Okay, so this is one of actually a teammate of mine. I was reinforcing him in Battlefield. And the important thing to look at here is the debuffs, right? So everything in here. So that is what he has. And he has minus 505% ranged attack, minus 302% mounted troop HP. And those can only go up to 50% of the attacker. So if he has 505 ranged, I believe he has higher than... actually, let's look at a better example. Let's look at his mounted troop HP rate or defense right there. It's 302. So if you look at the attacking mounted troop defense, it's 604. So this guy actually probably has higher than 302, but it will only show 50% of what the attacker is coming in with. So he might have minus 500%, minus 600%, but it can only show 50% of what the attacking troops debuffs are. So you can only debuff 50%. So that's the first thing that's important. So the reason that's important is because we're going to look at one of my Andrew Jacksons. And things such as siege attack are very, very easy to debuff. You could get up to 1200% siege attack. But nobody's attacking you with 2400% siege attack. So that 1200 is wasted. So anytime you have to make a decision like I'm going to sacrifice enemy siege attack debuff to add something else, that's a good decision because siege attack is very easy to find and you just can't debuff as much as you can find. So your goal for everything is basically going to be you want... Okay, this is another teammate debuff here. So what you want in here, ideally, you would like everything to be in the 500 to 600% range. Because most people that are attacking you are going to be getting 1,000 to 1,100, right? You've probably seen a lot of people with archer attack range in the 1,000 to 1,100 range. So that means your debuffs need to be about 550. 550 will completely debuff an 1,100 percent archer attack. So that's your goal. And you know what? If someone has 1,300% archer attack, just shake their hand and say, good job. You should not plan for that one person on every server who may attack you. You want to plan for what's going to happen when majority of people attack you. So you want to be well-rounded. Now, let's get into the debuff gear. So what you want to do, you're going to go, there is 2 types of Achaemenid gear for every single piece of gear you can create. Let's just see if there's any rallies that I would like to go in there, and there is. And we'll just leave the rest of them there. But when you look at Achaemenid gear, other than the weapons, when you go to the rings, there are 2 types of rings. One does range attack, and the other does enemy ground troop HP and mounted troop HP. And then you go to the boots. One does enemy siege attack, and the other does enemy siege attack and enemy mounted attack. So that's an easy decision. Obviously, you go with the one that does both. The pants. One does enemy range troop defense, one does enemy siege attack, and one does enemy mounted troop attack. This is generally, everybody's going to go with fearless as well, and I'm going to show you in a minute. Now we'll go with the armor. One does enemy mounted troop defense, one does enemy mounted troop defense and enemy siege attack. So that's an easy one as well. You're going to go with the courageous. Now when you go with the helmet, one does enemy mounted troop attack. One does enemy ground troop defense and ground troop HP. That's pretty easy too. You're going to go with the ground troop one because not many people are going to be attacking you with mounted troops. So you're just going to play your odds there. Plus you're going to get enemy mounted troop attack on other areas. Now when we go to the weapons, this bow, pretty much useless. You don't want some of the stuff that's on here, right? So range attack, it's not as important as some other things on defense. Now the Achaemenid spear, mounted troop attack, march speed to monsters, not exactly the stuff we want on, right? But what we do like there is we like the enemy ground troop defense and the enemy ground troop HP. So you're going to need some spears on your subgenerals. Now, axe, this is the big one. The enemy ground troop HP, enemy range troop HP. You're going to want some axes, swords, in city, right? And then enemy mount troop attack. So only one. So if you look at this again, the spear and the bow only have one debuff. And the bow is a siege attack. You really don't care about that. So what you want is spears and axes. They both have 2 debuffs and they both have 2 good debuffs. So now let's look at the generals. Oh, I'm going to have to get into this, into that rally for sure while we are talking here, because that is I'll get into both of these. So I like to keep farmers very close to home so that way I could recall them when I see, and I save my truce reports just because you never know. So that way I could get into rallies when I see ones that I like. Okay, so we'll get into those rallies and we'll go back to our subgenerals. So now we're into our subgenerals. And if you look at these 4 right here, so those 4 gears right there for every one of your subgenerals are going to be the same. So these 4 are the same. And only these 2, the ring and the axe, the weapon, are different. Those 2 you could change around on all your subgenerals, but the other 4 should remain the same. So every single one is going to have the courageous helmet because it has 2 debuffs. Every single one is going to have the Fearless Pants because it has 2 debuffs. They're all going to have the same Courageous Boots because it has 2 debuffs. And they're all going to have Courageous Armor because it has 2 debuffs. Now, Ring and Axe are things that you're going to play around with. It depends on how many cities you have. If you have 9 sub-cities, you should have 7 axes and 2 spears. So generally, whatever you have, if you have 8, you should have 6 axes and 2 spears. If you have 7, you might want to go with 5 and 2 or 6 and 1. 6 axes or 5 axes and then 1 or 2 spears. It depends on what you want to do to set it up. The rings, some people go 7 to 2. They like 7 archer range debuff. And some do 5 and 4. So I'm going with 5 and 3 with the 8 sub-cities. And then I'll figure it out maybe. But if you look, every single one of my guys, sub-generals, has the exact same gear. You see nothing change. The only thing you see change here is the dragon. But all of that's the same. Same. See? Everything's the same. Fearless, courageous, courageous, courageous. They're all the same. Same. And now this guy's missing one, but you could see I added the spear on him. And he has enemy ground troop defense, enemy ground troop HP. And then back to an axe on him. And then I have Cece, and she has a spear. And no ring. So I'm lacking rings. I have to get them. But as you can see, I have 2 spears, and the rest are axes. And I have all courageous rings for the range attack debuff, because that's the most important thing to debuff in the game, because that's who's going to be attacking you. Usually, that's the type of troop they're using. Once that's been successful, then they'll come at you with ground and mount. But if you could keep that down, your teammates will have a chance to reinforce you. So that's pretty much it. So the helmet, the pants, the chest piece, and the boots are all going to be the same. And then you have some room to wiggle on the weapon, but it should be majority axes and then the rest spears. And then the ring, you should be going with the courageous ring. And I'll just show you what the other ring looks like when it is equipped. So I do have one of them, but I put it on my archer attack general. And this is the one that debuffs ground troop HP and mounted troop HP. It's the fearless ring. And yeah, so I decided to go with Tamiris in the end over Electra after all that calculations. I got lucky and got her, and she's just a premium general, epic, so I got lucky with her. But we could talk about that another day. This was a video on how to gear up your sub-generals. So this is Genghis, server 68. Like, subscribe, leave a comment.